Children of the River, Chapter 13. Holding her braid wound on the top of her head, she stood under the hot shower, eyes closed, still uneasy with this American school custom of forcing everyone to shower together after gym class. She didn't want to see other people naked. She'd grown up with warnings against even looking at herself naked. You must cover your body in the shower, her mother always said. It better that way. And these customs were hard to break. Look at Soka, even now in an American bathroom with the lock on the door, wearing a sarong to shower all by herself. Sundara had given up that part of it easily enough, but she would never get used to an audience. Opening her eyes, she inadvertently caught a glimpse of Kathy Gates through the steam clouds. Those tan lines of hers, did she really wear a bathing suit so tiny? Sundara shut her eyes again. It had been hard these last weeks seeing the American girl walking the halls with Jonathan once again. Kathy seemed to have everything. This was her country, her language, and most of all, Jonathan was her boyfriend. She always looked like a girl in one of those Coke ads on television. But Sundara could tell Jonathan wasn't so satisfied. Once in the hall at school, their eyes had met. Before she glanced away, she caught the flicker of embarrassment in his, an apology. Another time he'd followed her, tried to talk. Just let me explain. Explain? About Kathy. Jonathan, you don't have to explain anything to me. That not my business. And resolutely, she turned away. No use fighting Kathy Gates for a boy she couldn't have anyway. Another time, as she was leaving the post office after mailing a package to Valin, she'd run into Mrs. McKinnon just inside the door. Sundara! Mrs. McKinnon stopped, shaking the rain from her umbrella. What a nice surprise! Then she cocked her head, her eyebrows going together in a way that saddened her smile. We were hoping we get to see more of you. Oh, Sundara watched the last leaves trembling on a tree beyond the glass doors. Mrs. McKinnon waited, then spoke hesitantly. Sundara, maybe this is none of my business, but did something happen between you and Jonathan? Sundara glanced at her through lowered lashes. He doesn't tell you? She frowned. Tell me what? Sundara stared at the marble-tiled floor. My family won't let me be with him. Oh, I see. No, he didn't say anything. She straightened her stack of manila envelopes. Do they not want you to date whites? Sundara bit her lip. I cannot date anyone. It is. Oh, I feel so bad. Your family's so nice to me, and then my family. Oh, no, now. Don't worry about that. We understand. Then she sighed, shifting her umbrella and envelopes, pulling her purse strap over her shoulder. I knew something was eating at him. The way he's been dragging around lately. Don't think about it, Sundara scolded herself, taking a towel from the stack on her way out of the shower. He'd get over it. He'd forget all about her before long. She should be ashamed, letting him put his arm around her that way, allowing him to untie her hair. Shamaru might not marry her if he knew of this. How she ached to have once again all that was rightfully hers. The boy promised to her. Her own land and people, the customs that had been passed down for centuries. Maybe she should ask Soka if she could study the traditional royal ballet here in the new land, dance in the statewide New Year's celebration in a golden spurred headdress. The trips to Portland for lessons will require time and money, it was true, but maybe Soka would think it were worth the cost to have everyone see Sundara making graceful poses next to the daughter of Pulsari, her niece no longer excluded from the upper-class traditions as she would have been at home. Sundara only wanted something of her own. Why hadn't she paid more attention when her parents tried to pass it all on to her? Why hadn't she listened when they visited the ancient temples of the Angkor? Look at this, children, her father had said over and over. Remember what is carved in these stones, of the qualities acquired, the highest of knowledge. She and Samit had obediently read every temple inscription he pointed out to them, but Sundara could only think what a bore it was, having to be solemn under the unseeing eyes of the huge stone faces. The escalade seemed made for running, the twisting hallways and the inner chambers perfect for hide and seek. What a light-hearted child she'd been, how little she'd understood of religion, of the world, and war. After school, the rowdy boys on the bus shoved each other and sent wads of paper whizzing past her as she gazed out in the gray sky. The sun now seemed something only dimly remembered from the past, and it was easy to believe there had never been any lunches under the trees with Jonathan, no sailing on the lake. She sighed. Just as well, perhaps. Her only thought now must be to remain true to the ways of the Kimuras, become a doctor, and help people. And when she married, it would be in the Khmer way, with a beautiful ceremony like that of Moni and Ching Sing. How happy they looked together in their rented silks, like ancient royalty. Moni had never been prettier, and slimmer too, having confined to Sundara that at last she felt sure of having enough to eat. It was a lovely party, a pleasant respite from the gloom of so many recent Khmer gatherings. Soka had even surprised Sundara with a length of silvery blue silk to wear. Why would she do such a thing? Silk was expensive in America. They couldn't raise the worms and spin it themselves as they had at home. The kind they liked had to be sent from Thailand. Why would Soka bestow such a treasure on her? All week after the wedding, Sundara had been imagining herself in rustling bridal clothes, resting on the ceremonial pillows, her wrists bound to that of her groom with the silken cord. And when she shyly smiled up at him, the man she'd pictured was, of course, Shamarum. She tried to bring this vision to mind each time she saw Jonathan and Kathy together. It helped. Now, stepping off the bus, she flipped up the hood of her new jacket. Deep down, she longed for kombucha every day of her life, but winter always made the longing worse. She'd grown up with only 2 seasons, warm dry and warm wet. Here in the cold wet of Oregon, November, you could not even hold your head up. The rain had a way of beating you down, making you hunch your shoulders and feel the spiteful heavens were trying to break your spirit, opening up on you alone, even though plainly it poured on everyone. Once the heavy laden clouds began rolling over the Coast Range mountains in the last weeks of October, the rain never seemed to stop. Nara was fretting that the constant dampness was sure to rot the strange soft wood of their American-style home was bad enough, but grandmother's mutterings were worse. Someone must have died last week, she kept saying, listening to the drops strumming on the windows. Now they are weeping because they realize they are dead. Maybe so. You had only to turn on the TV to know that enough Khmers were dying to flood the earth with tears from heaven. Magazine covers showed hollow-eyed Cambodian children. Television networks carried nightly film reports of the sick and starving refugees dragging themselves across the Kampuchean border to Thailand in the wake of the Vietnamese invasion. Even people at school were becoming aware of the situation. Once in a while, a sympathetic classmate would ask Sundara if she'd seen the news. And while Mrs. Cathcart never mentioned it directly, she did ask Sundara how things were going in a way that made it clear she understood how difficult this must be for her. Now the bus pulled away with a blast of striking diesel exhaust. Sundara stepped off the curb into a puddle. "Ai, Cambodia." She pulled back her foot, cold and soaked. If only she could get some decent boots. Maybe next year. Oh, Soka was right. How ungrateful. She finally had her plum-colored jacket, and what difference did it make? Already she was wanting something else. Shameful, fretting about a little thing like wet feet when people were suffering their lives away in Kampuchea. At home, the grown-ups whispered about it all the time, falling silent when Sundara and the boys drew near, wanting to shield them. But they couldn't resist gathering around the TV each night. Sundara had heard all the Khmer Rouge horror stories before, the forced labor camps, the brutal massacres. But now these tales came not just from an escapee here or there, but from every one of thousands upon thousands of refugees, the stories varying only in the specific details of suffering. Genocide, they were calling it, the killing of a people. Sundara and her family stared at the screen images of spindly children, weak with hunger and exhaustion, some of them newly orphaned. Soka would cry. Naro clutched the amulet around his neck. The boys watched round-eyed, uncomprehendingly. They knew these were Khmers who were dying, their own people, but they did not feel it as grandmother did. Naro sometimes urged the old woman to go to the other room, but she insisted on watching. "We can never go home," she would moan. "My bones will be scattered in this foreign land, and how will my spirit ever find its way to be reborn?" Once again, the ghosts of starving children haunted Sundara's dreams. She saw their faces, their rolled-back eyes, felt their limp, skeletal weightlessness in her arms as she fought her way through crowds of people, stepping over dead bodies whose bony fingers snatched at her ankles. "Come back," they wailed, "come back." But she kept running, heart pounding. "Hurry! Get away! Far away!" Then, just as she made it to safety, just when she had taken her first easy breath, she'd open her kromar and find the child inside shattering into ghastly flakes, hot ashes rising in a whirlwind. Her mouth would open in a dry scream. No, no! She'd lurch awake, burning a sick thudding in her chest. Now, taking off her wet shoes in the covered entry alcove, she noticed Soka's white work Nikes on the mat. They were not nearly paired as usual, but askew, one on its side. Lining them up properly, Sundara wondered what her aunt was doing home already. Oh, niece, Soka cried, opening the door. The news is bad, very bad. She pulled Sundara inside. What, something on the television? Why have you come home? I was so upset after lunch they told me to leave work. You see, I came home for mail and look, letters from the campus. You don't remember this family, but we knew them in Ream. They escaped to Thailand. Oh, it makes me cry in my heart. All the people the communists have massacred. Whose family, she said, even the babies. Grisly scenes rose in Sundara's mind. She braced for the worst. Oi, they say my good friend Theory, she and her family all killed. I last saw her sitting on her steps that afternoon we left. Oh, Theory, why didn't you come with us? I wish I could have convinced her. But younger aunt, please, what of our family? Was there news of them? No, nothing about our family. Thank God we can still have hope for them. Oh, but Theory. Remember her sitting there as we passed going down to the ship? I'm not sure, younger aunt. Sundara was trying to breathe again. No bad news of her family. Just the thought of it had dizzied her. What if bad news ever actually came? Don't you remember? Soka pressed her as if somehow Sundara's memory was of her last parting with Theory could alter the outcome. Why, I begged her to come with us. Yes, of course, Sundara said, remembering only her aunt's own screaming protest at being forced to leave. What tricks one memory could play. Oi, your letter is sad too, I'm afraid. I opened it thinking it might tell of your mother. I'm grateful it's not bad news of her. It's not family, but still it's sad. Someone who lived on your street. The blood drained from Sundara's feet. Her head tingled. She took the smudged paper in trembling hands, but before she could focus on the Khmer script, Soka summed it up. Someone you knew named Shamaru is dead.